You are listening to the Dyslexia Mom Life podcast. I'm Nicole Holcomb, former teacher and school counselor turned civil rights attorney and podcast host. It wasn't that long ago that we learned the reason that our daughter was struggling to learn to read in first grade was dyslexia. Fast forward 4 years past many hours of research and collaborating with experts in the field of dyslexia, now I'm sharing the lessons I have learned that took me from being an overwhelmed mom who didn't understand dyslexia to a go-to mom who is helping hundreds of moms each week through education and collaboration. I created the Dyslexia Mom Life podcast to give you simple, actionable, step-by-step strategies and hacks to help you do the same. If you're feeling alone and lost on your parenting dyslexia journey and you're looking to find a mom who gets it, you're in the right place. Let's jump in and get started. Welcome to the podcast. I'm so glad that you are here with us today. I am recording a special episode just for you. Today, I'm going to be talking about 14 ways to love your dyslexic. And yes, it is in honor of Valentine's Day. But when you think of different ways that you can love your dyslexic, we're talking about your dyslexic children, your dyslexic spouse, your significant other. It can even be how you love yourself. So we're going to talk about all the ways we can show love to those dyslexics in our life. This was inspired from a book I read this weekend. It was called Loving Your Dyslexic, a heart-to-heart discussion of how to help children and adults with dyslexia. I really wanted to record something special for you on Valentine's Day, although you can listen to this any time of the year. Today, I'm going to be talking about 14 ways you can show and support and love on your dyslexic child, significant other, like I said, or even yourself. Now, you may be thinking 14, that sounds kind of like a lengthy list, Nicole, and it might be to you, but you're going to find many of these things you're already doing, but you may hear one or two in there that you're like, I want to give that a try. So let's jump right in. I'm going to run through the 14 ways to love your dyslexic, and then I'm going to go back and unpack a couple of those for you today. And then I'm going to do a review and tell you again what those 14 are. And then I'm going to send you out to enjoy your Valentine's Day. So, 14 ways to love your dyslexic. Number 1, be patient. Number 2, learn about dyslexia. Number 3, be understanding. Number 4, nurture. When we're talking about nurture strengths and creativity. Number 5, be supportive. Number 6, communicate with compassion. Number 7, talk about dyslexia openly. Number 8, be forgiving. Number 9, learn about you, your child, and your spouse who's dyslexic. Number 10, experiment. Number 11, enjoy time together. Number 12, name those emotions. 13, approach your dyslexic with a growth mindset. And number 14, love on them for being uniquely dyslexic. What about that list? I know it was a little lengthy, but you know what? Every one of those things, if you think about the pieces that you're already doing every day by coming to this podcast and listening and learning and educating yourself and finding out things probably about yourself and your spouse if this whole world of dyslexia is new to you. And I would imagine it is, or you probably wouldn't be listening to the podcast. So having said that, you're learning things along the way about your family. And as you do that, you continue to grow as a family and have a stronger bond as a family. So let's jump in and talk about a few of these things. Actually, let me just run through the list. Some I'll give more attention to than others. The very first one is to be patient. And when I think about patience, I think about it from not only a parenting perspective, but like I said earlier, it could also be with your relationship with your significant other or your spouse, your relationship in your home as far as being patient with others. It can also be patient with yourself. Give yourself some patience. And I'm going to talk in a few minutes about why that's important when we get down our list. So the second one is learn about dyslexia. So how can we truly help someone who's dyslexic, especially our children, if we really don't understand what it is, and we don't understand what it's not, and we don't understand the science of how the brain works, and we don't get rid of those myths of the things that we hear out in our communities, and we learn that dyslexia is hereditary. So is it affecting you or your spouse or the other siblings in the home? You can learn a whole lot about your family when you really dig in and learn more about dyslexia. And so we appreciate that you're with us at Dyslexia Mom Life, because that's one of the things that I'm very passionate about, is helping bring guests to you who can help kind of pull those pieces apart and help educate you. So number 3 is to be understanding. 1 in 5 is said to be dyslexic in our communities and in our homes. And when you think of 1 in 5 in a classroom, when you think about 1 in 5 in the overall population, that's 20%. So we need to be understanding as far as again, going back to the last one, right? Learning more about dyslexia so that we can be more understanding with coworkers, with family members. Just having that understanding really does give you perspective just in living. I've learned so much as a mom parenting a child with dyslexia, and I bet you are too. So sometimes we just have to take a step back, and think about that and try to be understanding when they're struggling. And something that may come very easily to you may not come very easily to your child. And we're going to talk about that in a moment, as well as what we're talking about where there's some struggles. So be understanding. 4, nurture strengths and creativity. One of the things you're going to find out with your child who's dyslexic, and maybe yourself or your spouse as well, is these strengths are amazing. And the creativity is really interesting to see how a dyslexic brain really works, and how they really are able to see larger pictures and big pictures, but they do struggle with some other pieces. And we're going to talk about that in a moment. Beyond learning to read, there are other pieces that makes a person dyslexic. So we want to really figure out, one of the best ways we can love on our dyslexic is really by nurturing their strengths and their creativity. And in our home, this is a little bit what it looks like. So in our home, our daughter's a huge Minecraft fan. So recently we went through a company and created a private server. So she and her friends in 5th grade could all have a private server. It was kind of a big deal. I'm still a little lost with it all, to be honest with you. It's a learning curve for me as a mom, just the tech piece of it. But it has also given me the opportunity to grow, but also it's given me the opportunity to nurture her strengths, nurture where she's creative. And so we find ways to infuse that into our day-to-day life. And so I ask questions and I try to learn along beside her, because that's important to us as a family. So when you're thinking about ways to really show love to your dyslexic, imagine how that feels when your child knows that you're going to take time to really talk about those strengths and support those strengths. So every conversation is not about, I didn't get my homework done, or this is stressful, or I'm just going to go to my room. Like, there's definitely seasons for that, right? That's definitely seasons that happens. But when we sincerely show and genuinely show that we have an interest in what our children are doing, then we're nurturing that, and that continues to create a stronger bond as parents, but it also gets the message to them that their interests are important to us. Number 5 goes along with that. Number 5 is be supportive. The one way we can show people how much we love them is being supportive of what they need. And sometimes that's just listening. So figuring out ways to be supportive. Number 6 is a big one. Communicate with compassion. How many of you out there can say sincerely that you communicate in your home every time with compassion? Yeah, it's a work in progress, right? Is what I was going to say. It is. So, we all have busy lives, and that's just the culture we live in right now. And we're busy, right? And then we're tired, right? Because we're moms and we're doing all the things. And so when I think about communicating with compassion, number 6, I think about being, really taking a step back and really giving myself some space to really hear the people that are in my life and to really hear what they need. And when I think about communicating with compassion, one of the things the author was talking about in Loving Your Dyslexic, he was talking about really going back to being supportive and understanding, is that dyslexics, their brain doesn't, for the most part, most dyslexics have trouble with short-term memory. And so they really do struggle with that. And so if you are, talking about multiple things, sometimes they can't follow along. If you ask someone to go do something and you give them multiple steps, they're going to possibly only remember the last thing you said. And it's frustrating, right? It's frustrating when you're trying to communicate what you need from someone and it's not, the communication is not being received, I guess, or the way that the brain is receiving it from the other party. It's having to really decipher everything and then figure out kind of what do I want to say next. And so the short-term memory piece really does sometimes hang people up when it relates to really expressing themselves verbally back to you. And so, like I said, that's something that, I'm completely honest about, communicating with compassion. Yes, I think I'm an effective communicator, but am I really effectively communicating in my home? Well, I'm human, so no, not every day. It's not happening. So that is an area that I would say I was working on. Number 7, talk about dyslexia openly. So in your home, having conversations about dyslexia, talking about the things that I know sometimes our daughter will laugh and go, well, that's just my dyslexia. That's what's showing right now. And so we'll have conversations about that. What does that mean? And really, I guess when I think about it is really trying to take the stigma off of it, not trying to bury it like it's something that we're ashamed of. Obviously with the podcast, we talk a lot about dyslexia in our home, but I also want to be able to be comfortable that if a family member is not understanding or a teacher is stuck on something or, maybe we're having piano lessons, whatever it might be, that we can really have conversations with the people in our lives also that support our daughter. And so number 7, talking about dyslexia openly, especially in your home, is a way to show your dyslexic love because they can see that this is just part of who you are, but it's not who you are, right? But there is a lot of stuff that goes along with dyslexia, not just the reading component. There is the emotional component and the social component. And by the time we find out that our kiddo is dyslexic, they have felt it. They've been in classrooms where they didn't understand what they were looking at. They felt behind, or maybe they were behind. Maybe they were slow to catch up, right? Or slow to get the assignments done. Maybe they saw their friends reading chapter books earlier, right? So they're looking at all those things and they're internalizing all those things. And our children may or may not tell us about that. Sometimes they'll be years later, our daughter will mention something. I remember one time here recently, she mentioned something about her best friend in first grade and how she was reading chapter books. But at the time, she didn't say anything about it. And so 4 years later, she's talking about it. And so number 7, we really do show love that way because we want her to know it's an open conversation. It's a nurturing conversation. And we're still trying to understand, right? We're still learning along the way with her. Number 8, be forgiving. Be forgiving to yourself, to others in your family, to that dyslexic, amazing person that lives with you. Not only your child, but your spouse, right? I mean, it's Valentine's Day. Let's talk a little bit about the spouses today. And so we have to be forgiving. And like I said earlier, we're all human. We're not always going to get something right. And it's okay to say, okay, so let's talk more about this communication piece, or how are you feeling today? And we're talking about what's going on at school or at work. You've got to be forgiving. You've got to be forgiving when you tell your child to go do 5 things and she comes back and she's only done the last thing. Her short-term memory just couldn't take all that in, right? So it may be that you have to tell her 5 separate times, okay, first go do this and then go do this. So you may have to chunk it down into some smaller, piece it apart to some smaller components. So you have to really think about that. And then when our family, I mean, this is kind of a larger conversation than just with kids with dyslexia, but I think just being a nature of being a person to be forgiving to others that are important to you, in your household and outside of your household, that really is a way to show others how much you love them, as being able to forgive them and have conversations when you need to about things, but also be forgiving and be able to move on with that relationship. Number 9 goes along somewhat with this, I guess, which is learn about you, your child, and your spouse who's dyslexic. So every dyslexic is unique. Because if you think about it, you have dyslexia, but it could be at different severities, if you will. And then some individuals may have dyslexia with ADHD, or some individuals may have dyslexia and dysgraphia, or have trouble with executive functioning. So not only, like we were talking about earlier in number 2, which is learning about dyslexia, like what is the baseline I need to know, then you've got to take a step back and really think about, how can I learn more about the people in my household? And we've learned a lot along our journey, and we've had a lot of conversations, even as parents, about, oh, okay, this makes sense why this is happening, even in our adult life. And so it's helpful and interesting and just part of that family unit to be able to really think about and learn about how that the individuals that live with us, how they are uniquely dyslexic. And what a better way to show love to them than to learn about them and learn their differences. Because like I said, if you've met one dyslexic, you've met one dyslexic. So when you think about it that way, everybody in your household is unique, because even if your spouse is dyslexic and or maybe you're dyslexic and you have some feelings about that and growing up as a child with dyslexia, it's still going to be very different than what your child is experiencing. Just think about where they're growing up in society with social media and the internet and access to information, also access to some amazing assistive technology that we didn't have, right? So there are pieces where we all look different. Our dyslexia looks different. And so learning about that and learning about those uniqueness for each really does speak volumes to people. Number 10 is experiment. So when you think about experimenting, this is what I'm talking about. Going back to the short-term memory, individuals with dyslexia do often have short-term memory problems, executive functioning problems, and they have trouble with directions and timing and where's the left, where's the right, even words like under and over and things like that. They can't quite grasp it many times. I know we laugh in our family because we say I'm directionally impaired. If it wasn't for a GPS, I literally don't know what I would do. Now, I will say on my behalf, I do live in Atlanta, so it's not a great place to get lost at, and especially in traffic, right? And there is 10 different ways to get somewhere in Atlanta. So having a GPS is always helpful. But I also found that if I don't have it on, I can get myself turned around very quickly because I do have that directional piece. I can't figure out which way to go. And so, but when we think about even the short-term memory pieces of, if your child can't do multiple steps of things, how do you have a plan for that? What are the personal tools that you're going to help your child with to figure those things out? How are you going to experiment with time management? How are you going to experiment with, what chores are they going to do? Homework, how is homework going to look? And so for some of that, you're going to have to try different things and see what sticks and see what works. And so we'll be talking more about that in an upcoming episode, but I want to just kind of put that out there. It's not one of those things where you can do it once and it's done. Our children are at different seasons in their life and are going to need different types of support. And so along the way, as the mom, we're going to have to help them figure out what are those personal tools they're going to need to be successful and to really overcome and work through whatever thing they're struggling with beyond just their dyslexia. Number 11, enjoy time together, especially today. Go out and enjoy your family today, because nothing says I love you more than spending time doing things that your family enjoys. Like I was sharing earlier about nurturing strengths and creativity, we also find time just to enjoy each other's company, to do things that one another enjoys and has fun with, and we laugh at things and we just have a good time. And so, we can be serious all the time if we need to be, but why do you want to live like that, right? Like, I want to have some time where our daughter can look back and say, do you remember that weekend and what we, and really just talks through things that we've done together. But it also goes back to what I've said in many episodes, which is building that strong relationship, because one day our kids will be adults and we want to be able to have a good relationship with them. And it starts when they're young. All right. Number 12, let's talk about the emotions. So it's helpful for kids and adults if we can name some emotions. When you think about dyslexia, you may only think it's all about learning to read. And sure, learning to read and learning how to remediate reading so children can read is huge, right? For them to be successful, it's huge. But there's also so much other that goes along with it. There's so much shame and there's so much loneliness. And there's just so much of seeing what others can do that they don't think they can do, or even questioning early on, why can't I do that? Is there something wrong with me? So we told our daughter really early on in first grade when we found out that she was dyslexic. Now, part of that, if you've heard my story before, was because we were looking at dyslexic schools and she had to go on a shadow day. And how is she going to go to a school that nothing but dyslexics go there and have a shadow day? So our timeline was moved up probably quicker than we had anticipated. But I just remember at the time our Orton Gillingham tutor saying, for some kids, it is a huge weight lifted off their shoulders to have a name to it. Even though to me, dyslexia is not the best name for it because it does sound very clinical. It does sound like a diagnosis of something, some kind of diagnosis of a serious illness. But we can't do anything, right? We're stuck with the dyslexia name. And, and I know even to this date, sometimes I have to look and spell it again, right? Like it's easily misspelled. It's just not the best thing for us to probably be naming it, but we didn't get to name this particular learning we didn't get to name this learning difference. So having said that, though, there are a lot of emotions that go along with it. And our kids are amazing at masking those and not talking about those. And as they continue to grow and get older, people are going to notice different things. And if some children are very open about being dyslexic, but not everybody is welcoming and understanding of that. And so talking about emotions at home and that's hard, right? And depending on the season that your child is in, our daughter's almost 11, so we're definitely in preteens at our house, definitely dealing with all the ups and downs. And so it's not always that they want to talk to us, right? But we can't give up on that. And so being able to talk and then just observing too, are they in a state where they need additional help? What's going on? Are they shutting down? Are they not able to function? That type of thing. But it's also good to be able to say, let's talk that through. How did that feel? How did your body feel? Like what kind of sensation were you having? Really talking them through what those emotions feel like. And we'll talk about that in an upcoming episode as well. So hang on to that. We'll come back to it. But naming your emotions and having conversations about emotions is important to really, demonstrate to our kids how much that we love them. Now, are they going to say, oh, you did this so you love me? No, that's not what I'm talking about. But as we continue to do these pieces, we continue to grow with stronger and stronger relationships with our children. So let's move on. We got 2 left. Hang with me. 13 is approach your dyslexic with a growth mindset. Now, if you haven't read Mindset by Carol Dweck, it's some of it, it's kind of a little bit older book, but it is really good. And really, she talks about fixed and growth mindsets. And so when I say a growth mindset, it really is more of a limiting belief. And maybe the easiest way to explain it to you today without getting too far into mindset conversations about growth mindset. But you either have a mindset that, yes, you can do more. Yes, you can be remediated. Yes, you can be successful. Okay, so you had a bad soccer game. What can you do different next time? Let's talk about that. Do we need to go to an extra practice? Do we need to get another coach that's going to specifically help you with a particular part of that? Is it we need to practice more times during the week in the backyard? What is it that we need to do? Do we need to go to a special camp? So it's really thinking about and having conversations and you as a parent responding to your child with more of a growth mindset, having conversations where you're talking through how they can work through a problem, as opposed to here's an example. It's not a great example, but let me give it to you because it's my own, which is I always have said I'm horrible at math. I've just, again, self-fulfilling prophecy. I say I'm bad at math, so I'm bad at math. But I never gave myself the benefit of the doubt to ever think I could do math. Like I was like, yeah, math is, we moved around when I was young, and it's just something that never clicked for me. But I had a fixed mindset, right? I had a fixed mindset because I had the mindset that I could not learn it. I was not going to be able to learn it. I just couldn't do it. But when I got in college, I had to take, I think it was trig, and I was like, oh, there's no way. There's no way. And I ended up hiring a tutor. I don't remember how many days a week I went to this tutor, but for some reason, something talking to that individual, it helped me to understand better what I was learning. And I ended up getting an A in that class. And I was like, wow, I don't know what happened there with my mindset, but something happened. Something happened there where I realized I can do this. So let's not wait till our kids get into college for them to figure out, oh, I can do this. We can nurture that and help our child grow. It's just another way we show love for them is, are they going to be great at everything? No, that's not what I'm saying. They're not going to be. What we don't want to do, though, is completely just freeze them out, right? Like if you're struggling at something, just like with dyslexia, we're going to get you the remediation you need. If you need extra tutoring, we're going to do those things because we want our child to know, and maybe you're going to advocate. You're going to call the school, you're going to advocate for your child, whatever that looks like. What you're not going to do is just give up, right? You're not going to give up. You wouldn't still be listening to this podcast if that was the mindset that you had. But I will challenge you because we all do it, because we grew up hearing more fixed mindset conversations with our parents and in our communities. So if you haven't read the book Mindset, you should definitely pick it up. I've talked about it in several other episodes. I coach moms on that as well. And it's really a great approach to thinking through the ways you respond to your children and how they respond to you. And it really is a great approach. Number 14 on the list is love them for being uniquely dyslexic. Just love on them. Just enjoy them and love them. So that's the 14 ways to love your dyslexic. 1, be patient. 2, learn about dyslexia. 3, be understanding. 4, nurture strengths and creativity. 5, be supportive. 6, communicate with compassion. 7, talk about dyslexia openly in your home, in your community. Number 8, be forgiving to yourself and others. Number 9, learn more about you, your child, and or your spouse that's dyslexic. Learn about what's unique about that dyslexic person that lives in your home. Number 10, experiment. Figure out how you're going to incorporate different personal tools for your child to be able to be successful. Number 11, enjoy your time together. We only get them for such a brief time. And I think about that as we're getting ready to go to middle school. I have all the feelings about it. And I think about that. Like we only have a short period left. Like we've already gotten so far ahead of where we are. And I want to enjoy as much time together as we can. Number 12, just name those emotions. Are you feeling sad today? How does that feel? What does your body feel like? You got really angry. I can see that you're angry. Tell me a little bit about that. Have conversations, name those emotions, make it common to have those conversations. And even at the beginning, if it's hard, keep trying. 13, approach your dyslexic with a growth mindset. And 14, love them for being uniquely dyslexic because we are all unique, especially those in our family with that unique dyslexic mind. If you enjoyed today's podcast, please share it with others. It would be the biggest compliment you could give us. You can go right to the podcast app that you're using today. You can hit a little up arrow. I'm sure it's there. And you can forward it through a text message, an email message. You can send it straight to social and say, hey, found this interesting. You can tag us. That's not required though. Just get out there and start sharing. 1 in 5, 20% are dyslexic, but not all of them know it. And if you think about what we were talking about today, even inside our home, it wasn't until our daughter was diagnosed or identified with dyslexia, however you want to say that, that we started realizing that the both of us see characteristics of dyslexia. So having those conversations is important, and sharing those with other people in your community is important, and they'll appreciate that. Today was all about 14 ways to love your dyslexic. Go have a fantastic week. Enjoy your Valentine's Day. And if you need anything, just let me know. You got this. Have a great day.